Number seven. Effective communication. Some of you guys were expecting this. I know I put it a little bit lower in the list, but effective communication is key to leadership. And I want to talk about some tips and some tricks on effective communication, because I think that a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions when we talk about this specific topic. And so what I want to start here with this is understanding that without effective communication, you have ineffective leadership. And a lot of people don't really realize this. If your communication skills is not up to par, it's hard to be an effective leader, because your goal as a leader is to get people to move in a specific direction. But if you can't communicate to them, or you can't find ways to get them to move in the direction that you're looking for them to move into, then you're going to have some problems as a leader. So without effective communication, you have ineffective leadership. And a lot of times when I say, look, the number one ability, and I ask you, what do you think the number one ability of communication is? Number one, you know what most people say? Speaking ability. You can get up on, like I'm doing on this video, you can get up here and effectively communicate what you're trying to say and what you're trying to teach, or the vision that you're trying to push people down. Whatever the case may be, effective communication, people think is speaking ability. Haha! Number one ability of communication is listening. Listening is the number one key. And you know what the problem is? A lot of people don't listen to understand. They listen to reply. And that's an issue when it comes to communication, because your ears is your number one asset as a leader. And what you want to do is you want to be able to listen, because as you listen, you start to build relationships. Most people hear their people speaking to them, but they don't listen. And listening builds relationships, and communication and leadership is built on the foundation of relationships. Now, when we hear people talking about relationships and leadership, right, and I'm still around communication, don't get with me, but when people hear me saying relationships and being able to build those solid relationships with people, some people say, well, how can I build relationships with thousands of people? Look, as a leader, you're not a leader to the masses. Now, some people say, what? Huh? How does that work? You're not a leader to the masses. You lead the masses, but you're not a leader to the masses. You're a leader to the few, and those few help you lead the masses. But you're not a leader to those people. By a leader, what I'm saying is relationship. You can't be an effective leader to people you only say hi and bye to. You can't be an effective leader to people you don't even speak to on a constant basis. You can't be an effective leader. You can lead them down the direction. Why? As long as your organization, you have layers of leadership, your core group, their core group, and so on and so forth. As long as you have layers of leadership, then you can get them to move in the direction that you want. You can lead them, but you can't be a leader to them. So I say that to say that in order for you to have effective communication, you must build relationships. And that's important. And as you build relationships through effective communication, you do it by listening. Okay. So what are you listening for as a leader? So this is important, because a lot of leaders, they're listening, but they don't really know what to listen for. They don't know what cues they should hear, or what should they be listening to. Past the words, because yes, I hear what you're saying, but you got to hear past that. You got to hear a lot of things when you're a leader that most people are not saying. So how do you hear things that are not being said? That's important. Let's talk about it. Number one thing you want to listen for. You want to listen just to listen. Now, what do I mean by that? You want to show that you care. You care about the person. So you're listening. Maybe they're going through a hard time. Now you can shut up the trying to lead them and get them in a specific direction and hear them out. What's going on? They might have lost a family member. They might have gone through a depressing time in their life. Look, people have lives outside of the things that they're doing currently with you and your organization or whatever. Or if you're a parent, you got to be able to listen past your current agenda. Just listen. Sometimes people, look, married men, let me help you out here, because this is something that took me a while to get to. Sometimes they don't want to hear what you have to say. Sometimes they don't care what you have to say. The only thing they care about is for you to listen to them. Women are probably not. If you're watching this with a lady, she's probably nodding right now. Yeah, that's exactly what I want. I just want him to listen to me. I just want him to hear the problems that are going on in my life. Don't try to fix it. Just listen. All right. So what's the second thing you're looking for? You're looking to hear their mindset. How are they thinking about specific things? You're having a conversation with them and they're telling you basically what they think it should happen and how they think it should happen. And you're listening for their mindset. You're listening for their philosophies. And then you're looking to adjust here and there. You might hear a philosophy and you might say, well, that's not really how you should be thinking. But you don't just go out there and just say, hey, this is what you should change. I heard you say ... You're thinking the wrong way. That's not leadership. What you got to do is listen. Then you got to hear for the mindset. And sometimes you got to just bucket list things. Like, oh, okay, I got to make sure I go back to them and talk to them about this. Not right now, not in an emotional state, but let me go back to them a day from now, a week from now, a month from now sometimes, and have a conversation with them about that specific philosophy and help adjust. See, as a leader, you're kind of like ground control. Now, if you ever had a rocket shoot up to space, the rocket is off track. 97% of the time, the rocket is going in the wrong direction. And they're constantly getting direction from the ground control saying, 1 degree to the left, 1 degree to the right, whatever terms they use there. And they're constantly getting guided to make sure they get to the right destination. Well, as a leader, you're doing the same thing. You're guiding people little by little. No forced pushes. Take your time. Leadership is about building relationships. You'll get a chance to get to course correct people, but you want to hear what their mindset is so you know where to shift them in philosophy. The third thing, you want to hear what their heart is yearning for. And this is deep. You want to hear, what are they really saying? How are they really feeling? What's really happening inside? Sometimes their heart is saying, hey, this is what I'm feeling right now. But a lot of times they can't say it. Like I tell a story about my friend. She is a top leader in a specific company. And her CEO bumped into her. And she was dealing with some things personally, and her CEO just asked, he could see that, he could sense where her heart was. And he asked, is everything okay? And obviously not a lot of people want to, talk about their personal trials and their personal tribulations, but sometimes they do, but you don't know. But, in this scenario, she didn't want to talk about it because, they were in a group environment and she didn't want to have that process. Plus, she didn't want to break down and cry in front of her CEO or break down and cry in front of anybody. But she was going through something internally. And her CEO just says, hey, are you okay? Is there anything I can do for you? Just don't be afraid to ask me if anything comes up that you need. See, that's a leader who took the time to hear her heart yearning. Her heart was yearning inside, but she didn't say anything. But you got to be able to have that discernment to be able to sense when things are not 100% right. And even if he doesn't do anything for her, just for her to know that he's there, her to know that he feels it and he's with her, and it connects you on a whole nother level. When you're a leader, this is the relationship building I'm talking about, where you're listening for the proper things and you hear it and you got the discernment. You hear what's in their heart and then you say, you know what can I do to help? Hey, let's talk about it. Sometimes it might be a little bit different. You might be in a situation where she's like, yeah, I want to talk about it. Here's what's going on. Give me some advice. But they don't want to initiate the conversation. So as a leader, sometimes you got to be able to see where their heart is, what's going on, and have that discernment. Is super important. So, number 4, their current desire. You're listening to hear, where's their desire right now? What do they really want? What are they excited about? What's important to them? As a leader, this is what you've got to listen for this. You've got to hear from a leadership standpoint. You got to be able to pinpoint every single person that you're working with and how you can help them get to their desires. Because remember when I talked about in the last video that your vision has to be bigger than the group. So when other people have their visions, it can fit into your vision. But you got to know what their visions are to fit into your vision, right? I used to have pictures of all of my leaders and their desires on my wall so that I can be reminded every single day of what they want, so that I can help them as a leader leader, it's my job to help them get to their desires within the organization. How can I assist? Sometimes even outside of the organization. Ooh, some leaders don't want to hear that. Sometimes you're developing people for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And you got to be willing to be okay with that. Some people are going to come in, you're going to give them so much, and then they're going to leave and go somewhere else. But they're going to go somewhere else, and if you created a right environment, they'll always go back to you and say, thank you for the time that you spent with me. Even though I'm not here in your organization, I'm making an impact. I'm making a difference. Be okay with that. Not everybody's 100% in, but you still got to develop them towards their desires. This shows them that you truly care about them. You care about them. If it's only about you and your organization, then you don't care about them. And I see this happening in a lot of businesses where people are saying, oh, I'm for you. I'm 100% for you. I'm here to back you up. I'm your friend. You're a family. And then you develop them and you grow them and you nurture them in your organization. And then they get good enough to go somewhere else and make an impact somewhere else. And then people cut ties. They say, well, you're not in my organization, so we can't be friends, we can't talk, we don't have a relationship anymore because you don't connect to me now. You're no longer, even if they go to a competitive company, you still, as a leader, your job, your duty, your fiduciary duty to that person is to give them everything you got and never sever the tie just because they went somewhere else. Oh, that's a whole nother, I wish I had time to go into a full-on training on that. But you gotta hear what their current desire is, and it's your goal as a leader while they're in your organization to develop them enough to get to their desires, whether it be in your organization or outside. Number 5, intent. You got to be able to listen to the intent of the people around you, because sometimes people are afraid to have the true conversations, to keep it real, as some people might say, and actually say what's really going on. So you got to hear their intent. What are they really trying to say by what they're saying? Sometimes they're trying to say things and beat around the bush, but they don't want to say it directly. So you got to hear that intent. You got to hear what's going on in their mind. How are they really feeling about this specific topic, and what's their intent behind it? Is their intent pure? Is their intent to say, hey, we need to fix this, but they don't want to say directly, we need to fix this, because they're scared of how you might make them feel or that you might get mad at them? Now, if they feel like that, that's bad leadership. You got to fix that. But in your organization, and some things maybe it might be a little bit on the awkward side, so sometimes they don't want to say it straight out. Whatever it is, you got to hear what their intent is and get to the intent. Try to get around it, or you say it first. Sometimes it just takes you saying it first, and then they can have that conversation. But until you clear the path and allow them that it's okay to have that awkward conversation, then they won't have it. And so they'll be saying things, but they won't say what they truly mean. So you have to read between the lines. Super important. All right, number 6. You got to hear their hurt, hear their pain. There are people in your organization right now, in your family, in your business, that are hurting. They're in pain. They're going through it. Like, it's really tough. And if you don't hear the hurt, like the hurt, this is deeper than just kind of, how's everything going type of thing. This is, you got to hear, like, when it's bad, when all things hit the fan, and you got to give people time. You got to give people the ability to kind of get around it, because sometimes people are hurting, and it might be hurting for a bunch of different reasons, but you got to be able to hear, what are they saying? What's going on? Ask questions. Get involved with their life. That's what this is really about. Get involved with their life past just what you initially are talking about. And a lot of this stuff goes back to caring. And I said this in some of the earlier videos. If you don't care about people, then you're not in a position to be a leader. Leadership is about service to many. That will lead you to greatness. But so many people want to be a leader when they only want to serve themselves. You've got to care. So what's number 7? You got to listen for new ideas and be okay and open for new ideas. You got to listen for these things, because it's important. When they have an idea, one, they have to feel safe to be able to say their idea, but you got to be okay to listen for it. And that doesn't mean you have to implement every single idea. And if it's off the path of where you're trying to go, explain to them why. Here's the biggest thing that I don't like about leaders. When they get new ideas or new suggestions, or they tell people, no, we're not going to go that way. And they don't say why. They don't explain, especially when you're talking to a leader. If you don't take the time to explain to them, here's why we're not going in this direction. Here's why this is important. Here's why I have to make this decision. Here's why. Leaders need it. And then your group would love it because they're like, man, okay, well, I really wanted to go in this direction, or I really wanted us to do these things, but after you saying that, I hear your perspective. See, it's all about giving perspective, right? So if somebody gives you a new idea and you might not like it or might not go down the path that you're trying to go, it's okay. Most people don't get mad about that. If you're telling them no, cool, but give them a reason why. But sometimes you gotta listen and don't be arrogant to feel like you have all of the information or you have all of the knowledge or you have all of the ideas. Sometimes you gotta listen and say, you know what? That is a good idea. We need to scrap what we were doing and bring that in. As a leader, you got to be okay with that. You got to be secure enough in yourself to say, I don't know everything. The problem with a lot of leaders is they walk around with their chest puffed out. And they feel like they have to know every single thing that's going on in every aspect of the entire business or the entire organization or even in parenting. Sometimes your kids come up with ideas and sometimes people say no to the kid, not because they're not right, but because they don't want the kid to think that they're not right. So they don't want to empower the kid. Why wouldn't you want to empower them? Why wouldn't you want to give them an idea saying, man, I have something of value to share? Like, why wouldn't you empower your people? This is why organizations are suffering right now. It's because nobody's taking the time to empower the people. And listening to the new ideas is empowering, right? Number 8. You got to listen for teachable moments. Now, I talked about earlier when you're listening for mindset, that sometimes you're going to hear philosophies that you want to change. Well, when you're listening for teachable moments, these are the times where you change right away. Now, the mindset times, sometimes you change those philosophies. Sometimes those things are later down the line that you help shift their philosophy. But when it comes to teachable moments, those are times where you need to actually make a change right then and there. That somebody says something, and you got to be, as a leader, and remember I talked about last video, is sometimes they're high-level topics. As a leader, it takes time to teach the differences between a correctable moment right then and there and a correctable moment in a later date and time. You got to be able to know, but when those teachable moments show up, you got to be able to teach them, and you got to do it in a tactful way. Now, it takes time to learn how to do it in a tactful way, but you got to be able to usher them and guide them without hurting feelings, without putting wedges between them, without making yourself to be on a platform. I mean, it's so many things that you have to do correctly when you're teaching them, because one incorrect teaching moment can ruin a relationship and sever a leadership tie, and now that person no longer is of value to the organization because now they have a friction, and that friction is not allowing them to do their job or lead on a high level. So now that friction is there, you can't move forward. And there are ways to get around that as well. How to deal with the friction in an organization and how to cure the poison, because there's possibilities to cure the disease when there's friction. But when it is there and you don't know how to do it, you can't move forward. Like you're going in two different directions. There's nothing that you can do because they're always going to have that friction until you learn how to deal with it. So it's so important that if you don't know how to deal with the friction when problems happen, when problems arise, if you're not absolutely confident that I know exactly what to do when people are going against me and we're having constant conflict, then you need to know how to have teachable moments in the correct way. And if you don't know how to do this, then just don't do it. I mean, it's better to just stay away from it. Like, even if you see a teachable moment, stay away from it. If you don't know how to effectively interject a teachable moment, or you don't know how to deal with friction if you mess up. So it's important. This is important. But you got to know that there are teachable moments you got to be listening for. So take the time to listen for it. And also, if you don't know how to do this teachable moment, maybe if this is not your direct leader, if you're not leading them directly and they're out on the outskirts in the layers of leadership, maybe you can go to their leader or go to their friend or their coworker or whoever, people that they're close to, and have them help you with that teachable moment. Like, hey, I've been trying to help Sally with ... but I haven't been able to help her. Can you help me move her? Don't tell her we had this conversation because I don't want to embarrass her. But could you help me move Sally down the right direction in this specific area? Sometimes you have to do that. And the last thing you have to listen for is obstacles. What obstacles are they going through currently? What are they dealing with right now within the organization? Not on the outside, not what's going on around in their life, but currently, what are they dealing with? What obstacles are they trying to get around with the business strategy or the sales, or dealing with a coworker, or dealing with a employee, or whatever the case may be? How do you kind of deal with the obstacles that they're going through? You got to listen for that. You got to listen to hear what they're going through within the organization and say, how can I help them there? That's what you're listening for. So the key to communication is really just understanding that communication is an art. It's an art. So it's going to be moving, and everything's going to be happening in different ways and having different outcomes, and you got to learn how to move with the water. People are going to feel this way one day and this way another day, and you got to be flexible. You can't be stuck and stirring in one specific direction, right, as a leader. And this is why it's so important for you as a leader to not speak to people in one way and communicate in one way, because it's impossible. There's so many things going on within each and every person that you're going to be listening for. So you can't communicate, because one person might be going through this and one person might be going through that, and you got to be able to move with the ocean, right? So it's important.